Good morning. Welcome to worship at Second Parish in Hingham, Unitarian Universalist. Welcome to old timers and any newcomers. Welcome into this beautiful and sacred space. Are there any announcements? Pam.
I'm very happy to announce that I'm not pleading for volunteers this afternoon. We're all set at the pumpkin patch. And also there will be a leadership board meeting at 11:30 in the minister study. Thank you.
Anyone else? Well, Lisa, I thought you were lurking with an announcement.
Yes. So Pam is correct. We are all set for today, but I'm looking towards next weekend, which is the long holiday weekend, and I know that might be tough for some people, particularly Sunday. Saturday is all set, but Sunday we need help starting at 11 a.m. So 11 to 1, we need one person, and from 1 to 3, we need 2 people. And then if anybody is available to help break down at 5 p.m., that is a quick job and very helpful. We just need, more than 2 people to help pull the net up over the pumpkins. And as you can see, sales have been very brisk. We're running low on inventory, so after today, we'll make a decision about restocking what's available from our wholesalers, how much we should get, what makes sense, because we do have to sell out at some point. That's like the whole point. So we can't keep refreshing the pumpkin patch, even though we love it when it looks all full and appealing. So thank you.
No pumpkins left behind. Okay.
Oh, and volunteers for next Friday.
Great. Thank you, Lisa and Pam. And the pumpkin patch looks great. Thanks to everybody who's been pitching in. Any other announcements? Well, I have one. As the bio indicates, I'm on the committee that creates the Listening to Other Voices program at Glastonbury Abbey. It's open to everybody. It's kind of a community interfaith, is an interfaith effort. And we resume with this year's series in October. I'll be quoting in my sermon later on Christian Wyman, our first speaker. He's a poet. The general theme for the year is Does Prayer Matter? And his title is The Days We Cannot Pray, Poetry, Prayer, and Other Forms of Listening. October 17th, Thursday, in a couple of weeks. I have additional brochures right here on your way out if you have an interest. Seeing no other announcements, our service will begin. In this turbulent, worrisome time in our nation and the world's history, isn't it good to be gathered here, in this place made sacred by the love and care of generations? Generations who have worshiped here, mourned here, celebrated here. Isn't it good to be gathered here, to pause in the midst of the rush of days, gathered to reflect on the things that matter most, and to remember and put aside for a time those things which perhaps matter less than we may sometimes think. Gathered to touch and be touched by the deeper wellsprings of our nature. Wellspring of love, care, compassion, source of all the nameless. Gathered here that we might be prepared to bring more love and compassion and kindness to every encounter, in every moment, this day and in days to come. Isn't it good to be gathered here for this high and holy purpose of worship? May we sing together, Winds Be Still. The hymn is number 83 in your gray hard-covered hymn book. Please rise in body or spirit as you are able.
Winds be
Please be seated. Our chalice lighters this morning are Molly and Nola. Thank you both for agreeing to light our chalice, two of our assistants in the Adventures program. And as they light the chalice, may we share together speaking the Second Parish Covenant printed in your order of worship. With love for each other, and with respect for each person's search for truth, we unite in the spirit of Jesus for the worship of God and the service of our neighbors. Thank you both once again. I'd like to invite any of the young people, the children who are here this morning, to come right up front. Molly and Nola will join you as well. Good morning. You can say good morning. Good to see you all. And okay, here we go. Good morning. Good morning. Yeah, all right, thanks. Sam was leading the way with that. Good morning. Great. So this morning, with those other people behind you after you all leave, I'll be talking about things like prayer and meditation and contemplation, getting really quiet and sort of listening with your mind to what might be there when you're really quiet. Now, some people like to pray. They feel like they're praying to God or to the universe for something good to happen, or just praying for peace. And some people like to just meditate, to sit quietly. Do you ever meditate and just sit quietly? Look at your pumpkin. It feels good sometimes just to sit. Let's do that for a second. Just sit. Try not to think about anything, even though your mind will start thinking things. Just sit and enjoy being here. So often we feel that we have to fill the silence with something, talking, doing something. Well, there are lots of ways to pray or to find a quiet place inside, and one of the ways is with music. Now, this old banjo, it's not actually old, but it's a replica of banjos that were very common about 200 years ago. And it's not very different from banjos that African-American enslaved people made and used to play. And sometimes we think, well, they were using their banjos and they played fiddle also. And they used them just to sing and dance and have fun, and that's all true, because music can help us just have fun. But it turns out, the more we've learned that they were also using their banjos for what we would call sacred times. We come to church here for a sacred time, a time to think about important things. And they too, of course, had their own ways. And for rituals or times when they were sad or times when they wanted to share their happiness in worship, what we do here, but in their own way, they used musical instruments like this banjo. Now, we might usually think of banjos as bright and cheery, and a lot of the banjos that you see they have steel strings, and they make a bright, cheery sound, and some of you may remember sometimes I play a banjo just like that. But this has quieter strings and a very rich sort of sometimes I just play this as a kind of meditation, if I find the right notes. I can just play and play and play. But you can sing too, and I'm going to teach you a song. Sometimes we sing with everybody here. It's in our hymn book, and it's called There's More Love Somewhere. It's an easy song to sing because the words repeat. There is more love somewhere. Can you say that? There is more love somewhere. But we'll sing it. And then you say that a couple times, and then you say, and I'm going to keep on till I find it. There is more love somewhere. If you know it, start singing right away. There is more love somewhere. There is more love somewhere. I'm going to keep on till I find it. I'm going to keep on till I find it. There is more love somewhere. See, it's a kind of prayer, too. And then we add other things, like there is more hope. There is more hope somewhere. There is somewhere. I'm gonna keep on. I'm gonna keep on till I find it. There is more hope somewhere. And these days when there's too many wars and people, oh, thank you. I don't want to catch fire. There is more peace. Oh, we want more peace. There is more peace somewhere. Let me hear ya. There is peace somewhere. I'm gonna keep on. I'm gonna keep on till I find it. There is more peace and I'm gonna play it one more time, and you just think to yourself of the things you would like to see more of. Love, peace, joy, hope. Well, thank you all for singing and sharing some quiet time and hopes for peace and love and joy. Now we're going to sing again. We're going to sing you out to your Sunday adventures with Sam and Lee. Here we go. Let's sing them out, Mark. Our responsive reading this morning comes, as you can see in your order of worship, from Gates of Repentance, which is a Jewish prayer book for the high holy days of Rosh Hashanah and Yom Kippur. We are in the midst now, as you know, of those high holy days, the days of awe, as they're called, between Rosh Hashanah and Yom Kippur. And in this time of turmoil, worse than turmoil in the Middle East, this selection seems particularly appropriate. O source of peace, lead us to peace, a peace profound and true. Lead us to a healing, to mastery of all that drives us to war within ourselves and with others. May our deeds inscribe us in the book of life and blessing, righteousness and peace. O source of peace, bless us with peace. We're about to hear our solo, and as we listen and appreciate, we're invited to use the index cards that are in your pews to write down a joy or a sorrow or a concern that you'd like to be shared. The ushers will collect them afterwards. The prayer, our solo.
I pray you'll be our eyes and watch us where we go and help us to be wise in times when we don't know. Let this be our prayer as we go our way.
goodness, thank you. And Lisa and John, are there any over here? We're not in a hurry, at least I'm not. I'm certainly not. Thank you, Lisa. To begin with, Stephanie has sent several to share. Mary's brother, John Collins, recently died, and we hold Mary, Rich, and their family close. And someone else had also, yes, asked for a prayer for Mary, who lost her brother John this week. We hold them all in our prayers. Stephanie also shares that Ruth, whose health has been in our hearts and minds for the past few weeks, has turned a corner and is doing much better. And she asks for continued prayers and thoughts for all the victims of Hurricane Helene, with gratitude for community spirit that, along with help from many outside organizations, are helping them, and special thoughts for first responders. Another concern, my mother is in need of a kidney transplant, but Joy, she only needs one organ and not the two the doctors first told us she needed. Pray that I am a match for her. Remember that is, we share that prayer, oh my goodness. A concern for Lynn as she recovers from wrist surgery, and that's paired with a joy that Lynn is still one of the funniest people I know. That's a good thing. Please hold in your hearts the Arena family as they mourn the death of their husband, father, brother, and grandfather, Guido. Goodness, we hold them all in our hearts. Please pray for my friend Trish, who is battling breast cancer for the third time. Yes, we share that prayer. Paige will be running the Chicago Marathon for the American Heart Association next Sunday. She appreciates the support she has received from Second Parish. Congratulations to Paige. Goodness. Joy for the opportunity to get to know people a little better while volunteering alongside them at the Pumpkin Patch. It has only increased my gratitude for this wonderful community. There are so many ways to build community. And I would like to add one. Tomorrow is October 7th, of course, and the deeply felt concern that we feel in our hearts for all the Israelis and their families who suffered on that day from terrible terror and harm. And we pair that with concern for Palestinians in Gaza and the West Bank and for the Lebanese, who are also suffering terribly from the war that has ensued. We send our prayers to all in that part of the world, prayers for peace. May we sing together, Spirit of Life, words printed in your program. Spirit of Life.
All the stirrings of compassion.
Spirit of life and love, come unto us as we join in the spirit of prayer and meditation. As we pause, allowing our breathing to settle, our minds to settle, allowing ourselves to become more fully present in this quiet time that we share. From this deepening quiet, this stillness, inward and outward, may we find, discover, rediscover a deeper place in our hearts. That place where love ever resides and grows. That place where we know we are all brothers and sisters, siblings in this life we share. That place where we know we are part of the family of all life. And from this deeper place, the prayers of our heart rise. For those, as we've heard, facing serious illness or injury. Prayers reaching out to all, wherever they are, in need of healing and comfort. Those recovering from devastating storms. Those in the midst of war and violence, whether in the Middle East, Ukraine, Sudan, Haiti, or violence in our own towns and cities and communities. Prayers from the deepest place in our hearts, where love resides and grows. God's other name, love, resides and grows. Now when we enter prayerful, meditative silence led by the bell. Our unison prayer this morning is printed in your program, an interpretation of Psalm 67 by Stephen Mitchell. May we speak it, pray it together. Bless us, Lord, with your peace. Make your light shine within us, so that your presence may be known and your love appear to all people. Let all the earth's nations honor you, and all people shout out your praise. Christian, Muslim, and Jew, idol worshiper, agnostic, Buddhist, Taoist, scientist, brown-skinned, black, and white. Let wisdom speak in their hearts, and justice light up their eyes. Let all of them feel your presence and sing out in the fullness of joy. Amen. Our morning offering will now be given and received with gratitude.
Si la voix
Pam King has graciously agreed to share our reading this morning from a book called Prayer, A History by Philip and Carol Zaleski. Thank you, Pam.
All human beings long for the beautiful, the true, and the good, and every desire for better crops or greater wisdom, for world peace or a good night kiss, participates in this longing. We are constituted by nature or divine gift in such a way that this longing carries with it, as if its necessary companion, the impulse to pray, the indwelling conviction that prayer addressed in word, movement, or silence toward God, the saints, heavenly powers, earthly spirits, or the divine spark within, will allay this longing by transporting us to the threshold of our heart's desire. This is a primordial and universal event in the history of human consciousness and the life of every human being. Prayer lies in the ground of our being and connects us to its source, and every creative act bears, manifest or hidden, its imprint.
Thank you, Pam. After I asked you to do that reading and then looked at it again, I realized it's kind of a dense reading, but you gave it life. So thank you. Quite nice. Prayer, meditation, contemplation, or simply from a deeper place, as my sermon title put it. And in his recent book, Zero at the Bone, 50 Entries Against Despair, the poet, who I mentioned earlier, Christian Wyman, shares a personal anecdote about prayer. It was a night when his wife happened to be away, and his 4-year-old daughter, Eliza, he had twin girls, but the daughter, Eliza, appeared at Christian's door, wide awake, and said, "Daddy, I can't sleep. Every time I close my eyes, I'm seeing terrible things." Well, as a lifelong insomniac himself, Christian Wyman said he had great sympathy, as perhaps many of us do, great sympathy for his daughter's plight. He suggested that she pray to God, though admitted in what he wrote to us, his readers, that this might have been a case of brazen hypocrisy, since he was not all that great a prayer himself. But even so, he suggested that she pray to God to give her good thoughts, like the old family house in Tennessee that we'd gone to just a couple of weeks earlier, and all the good memories that they'd made there. Wyman went on in that vein for a bit, and then, as he wrote, he waited as that blonde-haired, blue-eyed intelligence, his daughter, took it in. And here's what he then writes as his daughter responded to his question, to his suggestion that she pray for good thoughts. "Oh, I don't think so, Daddy." She looked at me right in the eyes. "What do you mean, Eliza? Why not?" "Because in Tennessee, I asked God to turn me into a unicorn." And then she spread her arms wide in a disconcertingly adult and ironic manner. And she said, "Look how that's worked out." Wyman then goes on, writing to his readers, us, what exactly does it mean, after all, to pray? And what exactly ought one to pray for? I suppose it goes without saying that to pray to become a unicorn or to become anything that we're not cannot be the right sort of prayer. But a prayer for anything, for the weather to turn, we need rain, right? For the weather to turn, for a better job, for healing. Is that also the wrong sort of prayer? However natural it might be, as our reading suggested, to pray for such things. Maybe, maybe not. Brother David Steindl-Rast, in his book, Gratefulness, The Heart of Prayer, it's a book I still turn to 40 years since it was first published, he affirms that gratefulness is indeed at the heart of prayer. The simple breathing into this moment and its abundance and feeling gratitude for that, as we've been doing this morning, right? Gratitude just for being here. Not prayers for something, but as he puts it, prayerful living. This said, though, prayer clearly, also undeniably, has to do with deep yearnings of one sort or another. For healing, for help, for whatever it might be, the well-being of our dear ones, peace. What are we to make of these yearnings? Many years ago, a good friend of mine and colleague, as she lay dying, and we found ourselves beginning to talk about prayer, and she asked me what I thought about prayer. And I said, in words that I'd never spoken before and really thought in such terms, I said, well, I know where prayer comes. I don't know where prayer goes, I said, but I know where prayers come from. And I put my hand over my heart. In other words, prayers come from our heart, from someplace deep within, right? Wherever they might go. So whether or not our prayers are efficacious in terms of where they go, who, if anyone is ready to answer them, and so on, healing others at a distance, somehow in the sense of God answering our prayers, whether or not they're efficacious in answering our plea, prayer can, at the very least, seems to me, and I'm not the first to have thought this thought or said it, can be transformative of the one praying, right? Simply finding that deeper quiet, as we did with the children earlier and with one another. And from that quiet, and from our gratitude for the quiet and for the moment, allowing our heart's yearnings to arise. Our desire for the well-being of a loved one or a friend, or broader things, for justice, for peace, and so on. We might then discover that having allowed these heart's yearnings to rise may help us then, when we rise, to bring more love, more hope, more peace, as we sung, to the world, to each encounter, and so on, as we go about our days. To act on those yearnings, in other words. And it might be that that's the answer to our prayer. We are transformed. We are prepared for going forth in a different spirit, the spirit we want to manifest, after all. My almost daily afternoon practice, I like to say almost, it might not always be almost daily. Afternoon practice is taking some time for simple meditation, sitting, watching the breath. Most of you know the routine, watching the thoughts. Get stirred up somehow when you're sitting quietly. Rick told me he had to go, so I'm not feeling any... Good day, Rick. We understand. See, he doesn't need any more praying. He's ready to go. It was good to have him here as long as he was able to be here. So observing that ebb and flow, the thoughts that get stirred up, sometimes even more, but eventually, sometimes, not always, but sometimes they settle. And it's from that quiet place then that I can begin to bring, and even if I don't quiet, I intentionally bring to mind some of those, my loved ones, others I know who are going through a time of trial or trouble, and just hold them in my heart, in the light. Sometimes I speak silently a version of the Buddhist sutra on loving kindness, something like, may all beings be well, be safe, be at peace. Just that. Now, I have no idea whatsoever if this prayer, if that's what it is, and I think it is, if it moves beyond my thoughts and feelings, goes somewhere, in other words, but I do know that it softens my heart, strengthens my intention to be as compassionate and kind in my encounters as I rise from the chair as I can be, to put kindness and love always ahead of my to-do list. Just a warning for some of you and a reminder to many of you, retirement doesn't mean you no longer have to-do lists. There's always a list. but what comes first and what comes next, right? Now, we all know that taking time for this sort of thing, whatever our practice, prayer, meditation, contemplative reflection, and it's not so easy as we move about wherever our stage of life might be in our world of schedules and things to do and so on, the many and varied needs of our loved ones, the issues we care about in the wider world and so on. But to live from a deeper place, more alive, more awake, and so to move with greater compassion and kindness in the world, it is what we yearn for, right? And is this not another way of expressing our perhaps primordial, as the reading put it, desire for truth, goodness, and beauty, this ancient triumvirate? That's our innate desire, not as abstract qualities, but as concepts, but as felt qualities, of course. But it's not necessarily easy to live this way. I want to share a finely portrayed fictional instance suggesting how hard it is to live from a deeper place in a world that's always pulling us in other directions, more superficial concerns sometimes. This is from J.D. Salinger's, not Catcher in the Rye, but from his short story, Franny. Franny's a college student in the 1950s. She thinks, or thought, that maybe she was in love with a Princeton man by the name of Lane. She had arrived at Princeton by train on Saturday morning for the weekend of the annual Yale game. She begins to doubt her love almost right away, even before they finish their lunch at a fancy restaurant. Now, you might say there's a third character in this story, and that's the pilgrim in a 19th century Russian text titled The Way of the Pilgrim. You see, Franny has this book in her book bag, and Lane, noticing the book, asks her about it. She's at first nonchalant, maybe even a little embarrassed to say, but eventually begins to tell Lane with great enthusiasm, though unanswered enthusiasm, about this pilgrim's wanderings as he tries to understand the meaning of Paul's admonition to, quote, pray without ceasing. Lane, though, is far more interested in telling Franny about a paper he'd just finished, about the Yale game coming up, about the parties they were going to attend and so on, and about the frog's legs he was trying to figure out how to eat at this fancy restaurant where they were. Here are a couple of exchanges between the two. This begins with Franny telling Lane about one of the pilgrim's encounters, this with a simple country family. The pilgrim stays overnight, and he and the husband sit up late talking about this method of praying without ceasing. The pilgrim tells him how to do it. Now imagine Franny's excited voice as she tells this, right? The pilgrim tells him how to do it, and then he leaves in the morning and starts out on some more adventures. He meets all kinds of people. I mean, that's the whole book, really. And he tells all of them how to pray in this special way. Lane nodded. He cut into his salad with his fork. I hope to God we get time over the weekend so that you can take a quick look at this goddamn paper I told you about. I'd love to, Franny said. She watched him butter another piece of bread. You might like this book, she said suddenly. It's so simple, I mean. Sounds interesting, said Lane. You don't want your butter, do you? Well, it goes downhill from there. Conversation continues. We can easily enough make fun of Lane and his superficial interest in himself and looking good with this beautiful date next to him and so on. And we can certainly feel for poor Franny struggling without much response from Lane, that late adolescent wanting to know what your life is all about, the big questions, the yearnings of her heart, yearnings way deeper than who wins the Yale game or which party she and Lane might attend. But don't we have some of Lane in us too, as well as some of Franny? So do we have some sympathy for Lane, who it turns out as the story goes on, indeed has a caring side to him and knows how to get things done. These are laudable qualities. We all have this yearning to live from a deeper place, yet too often find ourselves, as I've said, chased or being chased by our schedules, relatively trivial matters that, yeah, need to be done, but maybe aren't as important as some other things. And most of us do know some of the ways to live from a deeper place, our practices, whatever they might be. We simply too often fail to make time in our schedules to practice our meditation or Tai Chi or yoga or just read a piece of scripture or poem, whatever it might be. We each have our own ways. We just have to practice them a little more often than we might be doing. I know I do. But as the country song quoted, that's where that quote came from, at the top of your order of worship puts it, if you want a good, cool drink of water, you got to dig a little deeper in the well. Here, I'll put a tune in your head. You'll go out with this. If you want a good, cool drink of water, you got to dig a little deeper in the well. You can look it up. And the good news is it doesn't really take a whole lot of time to do this, to enrich and enhance all we do the rest of the day. It's not about some grand enlightenment. It's just about learning, as I've said, to live from a deeper place beyond the narrow confines of ego and lists. And as we do, we might find we're not necessarily escaping from, say, the news, but finding more sympathy, empathy for those behind the news who suffer injustice, war, and so on. And maybe feeling more palpably the love that we have for our dear ones in the midst of everything that clamors for our attention. Experiencing and living life with a little more openness of heart to help and heal as best we can, knowing too that we don't have to carry the whole load. You know, that deeper place might remind us that we're connected to a much larger human family of life. Just say one more word about Franny. In the book she was carrying around, The Way of the Pilgrim, the narrator writes early on, ceaseless interior prayer is a continual yearning of the human spirit toward God. Well, translate God how you will. It's a nameless reality after all. And maybe it's just the love deep within. Translate prayer however you want, for that matter. Another word for prayer might just be attention, maybe grateful attention, which may help us, as my colleague James Ford once put it, may help us come to a more vivid sense of our place in the play of cosmos, hearts and minds open, deep intimacy, moral perspective, a peace that passes all understanding. So may we, each and all, following one path or another, one practice or another, not discover how to become a unicorn, rather simply discover ways of living from a deeper place. Simple attention, prayerful yearning for all that is good and beautiful and true. Place of gratitude and compassion, kindness and love. What better spirit in which to live and love and serve life during these turbulent and worrisome times and always. Blessed be, so may it be, and amen. Our final hymn is another prayer. This is my song, number 159 in our hymn books. 159. Please be seated. Aware of the blessings in our lives, with gratitude for these blessings, for the peace of this time, may we make of our lives a blessing of peace and of love, of kindness to all whom we meet in our life's path, to all life. May it be so. Amen.